Find the exact value of each expression in radians. In part A, we got tangent inverse of 1. Okay, this is simple because we know that tangent of 45 degrees or tangent of pi over 4 is 1. That means tangent inverse of 1 is pi over 4. So the angle or the answer for this is pi over 4 radians. In part B, sine inverse of 2. Okay, and sine, the range of sine is -1 to 1. So there are no angles whose sine is 2. So sine inverse of 2 is undefined. Okay, there are no angles whose sine is 2. Same thing for cosine. Cosine inverse of 2 would be also undefined. In part C, tangent inverse of -√3. So tangent inverse of negative or sine inverse of negative, we can pull the negative outside. This will be same as negative tangent inverse of √3. Okay, only for sine inverse and tangent inverse. Then negative outside, tangent inverse of √3. Now we need to look for an angle, positive means first quadrant, whose tangent is √3, and we know that tangent of pi over 3, that's the 60 degrees, is √3. That means tangent inverse of √3 is pi over 3. So the final answer is negative outside and the angle is pi over 3 radians. Okay, part D, cosine inverse of -√3 over 2. So we have no information about cosine inverse of negative. Okay, and we know that cosine inverse of something, when we find the angle for cosine inverse, that should be in between 0 and pi inclusive. 0 and pi, that means either in the first quadrant or in the second quadrant. Cosine in the first quadrant positive, cosine in the second quadrant negative. Okay, so we are looking for an angle whose cosine is -√3 over 2, and now cosine has negative value in the second quadrant, so our answer should be in the second quadrant. Without negative sign, we know that cosine of, let me write here, cosine of pi over 6 is √3 over 2. Okay, pi over 6, but this is negative, so we are looking for corresponding angle in the second quadrant. So pi over 6, that's pi over 6. Okay, so this is pi over 6. If you are using a unit circle, all we have to do is look at the x coordinate as -√3 over 2. Okay, so it's easy if you are using unit circle. Just x coordinate, look at the x coordinate and -√3 over 2, that corresponds to pi over 6. Part E, sine inverse of sine 3 pi over 2. For sine inverse, when we find the final answer, sine inverse of some value, that will be angle. For sine inverse, it should be in between, the angle in between -pi over 2 to pi over 2. Okay, so basically if you look at here, -pi over 2 to pi over 2. So like first quadrant and fourth quadrant. If sine has positive value, that's in the first quadrant. Okay, negative value in the fourth quadrant. So sine 3 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4 is in fact in the second quadrant. Okay, 3 pi over 4 is in the second quadrant, and sine 3 pi over 4 has positive value. So our final answer should be in the first quadrant, because for sine inverse, so either first quadrant or fourth quadrant here, so it should be in the first quadrant because sine 3 pi over 4 is positive number. And now we need to look for the corresponding angle. 3 pi over 4, that's like pi over 4. Pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. Down here in terms of negative pi over 4. So sine 3 pi over 4 is same as sine pi over 4. So you can rewrite one optional step, sine inverse of, this is same as sine pi over 4. Okay, sine pi over 4 and sine 3 pi over 4 have same values. Now sine inverse and sine, these are inverses cancel, so the final answer is pi over 4. Okay, because sine inverse, the range of sine inverse is negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Okay, should be in between negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Same thing for tangent inverse. Okay, so the answer should be in, for tangent inverse, the final answer should be in negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, and pi over 4 is half of pi over 2, so this is lucky, just cancel tangent inverse tangent, so pi over 4. In this case we could cancel, but 3 pi over 4 not in this range, negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. 3 pi over 4 is in the second quadrant. We have to have either in the first or in the fourth quadrant. Okay, but in this case it's lucky, pi over 4 is in the first quadrant, so that's inside this range, so we just cancel and the answer pi over 4. Final.